Hello, Graf here, actual CEO and heartbeat of Good Soup Games, and a warm welcome back to you to the channel. Before we jump into today's video, we are currently running a giveaway. Do you want a chance at grabbing some free silver to purchase episode Revenant for yourself, or maybe you have been eyeing up a sweet new weapon ornament in the Eververse store? We are currently giving away 1000 silver to one lucky winner. All you have to do is like this video, subscribe, and comment the hidden word that will have letters scattered throughout the video, so keep your eyes peeled. With the new episode comes new builds, and I certainly have one that almost does everything you can think of on the Hunter today. I'm not joking, this build will allow for crazy damage reduction numbers, ignitions / scorching, constant jolting, weakening, severing, slowing and freezing, being continuously amplified, and finally healing from Devour. As with all of my builds, I like to create ones that will be good to run no matter the episode, but are enhanced by the artifact mods. Wasting no time, as we have a lot to cover today, let's jump into the build. Another prismatic build video, another exotic class item to talk about. This time we're using Spirit of Galanor and Spirit of the Arachne. Do remember you can now focus farm one of the perks by visiting the Ghost Vendor and the Pale Heart, so you are guaranteed to get at least one of these perks after running a dual destiny. The most important out of these two would be Arachne, as this will give us our first line of damage resistance at 45%. Something we should be having up more so than not. Spirit of Galanor will allow us to throw out more supers, something we have discussed on a previous Hunter build, and check out right here. Two alternative perks for the class item, if you prefer, would be Spirit of Renewal for survivability for both you and your teammates, and Spirit of Star Eater to boost your super's damage if the first two perk selections aren't your thing. On Prismatic, we have a wide range of supers to pick from, but only two stand out from the pack for how it synergizes with this build, and even then, it is situation dependent. The first super of choice for this build would be Silence and Score, as this seems to be the most consistent when using Spirit of Galanor, especially in activities like Onslaught, as this will allow us to continuously control the battlefield. The second super of choice I find really works well with single target damage is Golden Gun. However, 3 hits of Golden Gun will only seemingly net you about a quarter of your super back. For the dodge, you can use either Gambler's Dodge, which is what I run, to get your melee charge back if you need it. You'll see why this becomes important later. Or Marksman's Dodge if you are doing burst DPS with a heavy grenade launcher, for example. This is really dealer's choice. The selected melee is Threaded Spike, as this will allow you to sever multiple enemies, and it pairs perfectly with one of our fragment choices. This melee will allow us to hit and kill multiple targets on the battlefield. A little unheard of on the Hunter Prismatic kit, but the grenade of choice is the Magnetic Grenade. This isn't usually the best in slot grenade to pick, but once we talk about the synergy, you'll understand why this becomes important. In my opinion, Ascension is very criminally underrated in PvE, and I think a lot of that comes down to how strong Stylish Executioner is, but Ascension, used in the right way, is a powerful choice. Not only is it able to jolt targets and do damage to multiple enemies on the field, something you would have seen a lot in the gameplay, but it also gives us Amplified on demand. While Amplified, we get a massive boost to our mobility, meaning that the stat becomes less important overall. I'll touch more on this when we get into the stats. Gunpowder Gamble is the second aspect of choice, and using Gunpowder Gamble will allow us to effectively have an extra grenade, allowing us to frequently proc Woven Mail, with the added benefit of a huge AoE explosion, plus the intrinsic way to stun unstoppable champions with the ignition. In order to get Gunpowder Gamble, we either need to get 3 solo weapon kills or 2 ability kills, which can be easily done between our Magnetic Grenade and Threaded Spike and Ascension. Now let's talk about the fragments. Facet of Blessing is first up. Melee final blows will start health regeneration, and while transcendent, this will also start health regeneration for nearby allies, which we will be doing a lot in this build. Blessing gives us the health regeneration paired with Threaded Spike. Facet of Dawn pairs perfectly with Blessing. Upon landing, an empowered melee hit makes us radiant, and while transcendent, powered melee kills will make nearby allies radiant also. Next up is Facet of Purpose, which leans perfectly into the survivability of the build. Picking up an Orb of Power will grant us frost armor when we're using Silence or Score. or restoration when using Golden Gun. Frost armor will stack with woven mail, turning us into a walking shield. However, restoration is a fantastic pick for rapid health gains. In our 4th slot, we are running Facet of Dominance, which will give our magnetic grenades the ability to weaken targets hit by it and targets damaged by the AoE effects. So every time the grenade is thrown out, woven mail will proc, and also granting extra damage output from all sources. The penultimate fragment is Facet of Ruin. This will allow for more lethal damage to be caused by both Gunpowder Gamble and Silence and Squall. Lastly, we have Facet of Protection, which will allow us to be extra tanky while we are surrounded by combatants. The core of what makes every build successful is of course the stat priorities. Resilience should always be at 100 if you can get it there, and it should be the first and foremost priority. Discipline is also very important for this build, so if you can get that to 100 too, that would be ideal, as this will allow for woven mail to be up as much as possible. Recovery can be at least 50, as we will be using other means to get our health back. Every time we get a kill with our threaded spike, health regeneration will start. Strength can be as low as possible, as we will get our melee charge back every time we dodge near enemies, thanks to Gambler's Dodge, and it will also be up every time we go Transcendent. Intellect isn't super important on this build. However, keeping it at 30 will ensure that we're not negatively impacting the charge rate. And lastly, we have Mobility, and we will only need this at 50, as the other 50 will come from when we are amplified, giving us 100, which we will be amplified 90% of the time. Now let's talk about weapons for this build. Vantage Point is the new 390 RPM pulse rifle that comes as part of the new Onslaught Salvation game mode. As part of the story quest, you can get a stats for all Volt Shot roll. Volt Shot can't usually roll on this weapon, so definitely keep hold of this one. However, the god roll for this that I think you should be chasing for this build and overall is Eddy Current with Jolting Feedback. Jolting Feedback will allow for continuous jolting on a single target with arc lightning damage chaining to nearby targets. Pairing that with Eddy Current, you have a great single target damage rifle that reloads insanely quickly and has the ability to chain damage to adds, just like Bolt Shot. With Jolting Feedback, this will intrinsically have overload champion capabilities. Also, Unstoppable Pulse Rifle is in the artifact, allowing this gun to be a 2-for-1 over the course of the episode. Conditional Finality is a great special pick, as it will charge both our light and dark transcendence meter. However, Anti-Barrier Shotgun won't work with Conditional Finality, but the workaround here is that it will work with Radiant procced. Bungie has done this so the shotgun won't intrinsically be able to deal with all 3 champions at the same time. Bittersweet is a new adaptive frame grenade launcher from Onslaught Salvation. Grenade launchers are heavily boosted in the artifact this episode, so use whichever grenade launcher feels best to you. I'm running Loose Change and Jolting Feedback to play into the champion's stunning capabilities. The beauty of this build is that it isn't reliant on any weapon specifically. You can use whatever you like, but these weapons do enhance the gameplay loop of it, especially when we're able to jolt most of the enemies consistently thanks to Jolting Feedback. It's probably my favourite perk out of the new episode. I highly recommend it. I've spoken about how this build shines alone, but it can definitely be enhanced from episode to episode with the help of artifact mods, which will mainly centre around making our weapons better. In tier 1 of the artifact I have Anti-Barrier Shotgun, Overload Grenade Launcher, Unstoppable Pulse, so we have all champions covered and we can swap around weapons depending on the situation. Tier 2. Fell the Revenant, allowing us to deal more damage to Scorn, which can be increased when using Shade Stalk armour. Rapid Impacts. Dealing damage with a grenade launcher temporarily increases the reload speed of grenade launchers. Tier 3. Power from Pain. Rapid final blows against weakened combatants grants us Devour. Trace Evidence. Rapid precision hits or rapid final blows on a target affected by Jolt or Blind will generate ionic traces. This is when we enter in the Vantage Point with Jolting Feedback, and we have a perfect ability loop regeneration from just one weapon. In tier 4 we have Armour of Eramis. While frost armor is active, taking critical damage from combatants causes you to emit a freezing burst. Concussive reloader. Using a grenade launcher to damage a boss, damage a champion, or break a combatant's shield weakens them. Using this is an additional source of weaken along with our magnetic grenade, which will directly loop back to us having Devour up. Retinal burn. Rapid arc weapon precision hits consume an armor charge to blind the target. And lastly is the tier 5 column. Conductive Cosmic Crystal. Your arc abilities, void abilities, and weapons with Dark Ether Reaper origin trait do bonus damage to targets affected by stasis debuffs. Kinetic Impacts. The final on our list, but it is currently bugged and taking longer to activate than intended. Something Bungie is looking into, but it states that sustained damage with a powered grenade launcher causes the combatant to emit a shockwave that damages nearby combatants. Essentially, the heavy grenade launcher version of Kinetic Tremors. Now we're going to go into the armor mods. On the helmet I run 2 Siphon mods for Orb Generation, 1 Arc and 1 Harmonic for the stasis element of Conditional Finality, followed up by Ashes to Assets mod for when our Threaded Spike gets a kill. Slotted into the arms is double impact induction and momentum transfer so we can feed back into both our melee and grenade recharge rate. For the chest, as always, the focus is resistance, so just switch these out depending on the activity that you are running. Legs are all about bigger damage output and healing, so we have 1 arc weapon surge followed by recuperation and better already. The class item focus here is regeneration, so we use outreach to reduce our melee cooldown, powerful attraction, and font of restoration. And there you have it, that is the build all wrapped up. I hope you were able to take something away from this today. Don't forget to focus your class item perk at the Ghost in the Pale Heart to secure one of the perks mentioned in today's video. We would love to hear how you got on with the build, or if you have any improvements that we may have missed. As always, it has been a pleasure, and if you have found this content useful, a like, comment, subscribe would be much appreciated. And a final reminder on this week's giveaway, don't forget to secure your entry alongside a subscription and a like by commenting the hidden word that was scattered throughout this video for your chance to win 1000 silver to purchase episode Revenant for yourself. It has been an absolute pleasure. I have been Graf for Good Soup. Bye!